Good afternoon, and thank you for attending the first of AGR's series of 4 webinars on merchandise financial planning. I'm Keith Dunn, the Principal Consultant for Buying and Merchandising here at AGR. I've worked in retailing for many years, during which time I've had senior buying and merchandising roles in a wide range of international businesses, including those whose logos you can now see on screen. Before I start this webinar, just a quick reminder of the other ones that we're running. In the next one, on the 26th of April, I'll be talking about how good stock management is essential to profitability. On May the 10th, I'll be looking at how to plan for markdowns and promotions. And finally, on the 25th of May, I'll discuss how to balance the costs and benefits of online returns. Hopefully you'll be able to join us on these dates as well. In this session, I'll be discussing why merchandise financial planning plays a critical role in your ability to manage what has become an incredibly volatile retail market. I'll be looking at how merchandise financial planning can help you to set robust plans, which give consistent visibility of both expected and potential future outcomes across the business, and which enable you to formulate agile responses to unforeseen changes in trading conditions, such as those that we've experienced last year. Most of what I'm going to cover probably won't be that new to you, but given what we've been through recently, now is a good time to go back to basics and remind ourselves of some of the key principles. If you do have any questions, can you please ask them using the webinar chat, and we will get back to you at the end of the webinar. Let's start with a quick review of last year. So how was 2020 for you? I think it's a safe bet to say that it didn't turn out as expected for anybody, with the main problem being that while sales were way off target, the stock that had been bought to cover them had been ordered and was on the water long before the COVID crisis hit. The challenge then was to react quickly to the new reality and to reforecast performance based on circumstances that were in some cases changing daily. It was essential to be able to see the effect of the downturn in sales on stock and margins. Once you could see how bad, or in some lucky cases, how good the year was turning out, then you could work out what needed to be done, both to manage your stocks and either to salvage as much revenue as possible or to capitalise on the opportunities that were emerging. The sort of questions that were being asked were, with stores closed, how quickly could you move your customers online? What were your options with the stock that was already in the business or on order? What could you do with regards to placing new orders, and when would this stock be needed, and so on? Given what happened last year, how do you see the outcome for 2021? And for 2022 and beyond, and more importantly, how are you going to manage the inevitable challenges that will occur? The events of last year have meant that we've all had to take a long, hard look at our business models. And as we progressed from lockdown to lockdown, the savvy retailers were starting to think about and plan for alternative futures. At one end, they needed to consider how they would cope if there was another lockdown of a similar scale, and at the other, what opportunities there would be when the retail market did reopen. What is clear is that retailing as we know it has probably changed forever, and the level of volatility and uncertainty that we encountered last year needs to be factored into our planning. For most businesses, success depends on the ability to manage the unforeseen. We might not be able to accurately predict the future, but if we are able to envisage and plan for the possible outcomes of different scenarios, including disasters, then at least we can develop contingencies that enable us to react quickly to mitigate the risks or to capitalise on the opportunities if these scenarios do become reality. How many of us did have contingencies in place last year to deal with an unexpectedly massive downturn in sales? And how much better would we have been able to manage last year if we had? Planning for the future is made substantially easier with a robust merchandise financial planning process and good supporting systems that enable you to ask the relevant questions and to formulate the appropriate responses. Another key principle worth revisiting is why we bother setting plans at all. Some might say, if the future is so uncertain, why don't we just operate from day to day and respond to circumstances as they evolve? For me, there are many reasons why you need to set plans, but I think that there are 3 that are key. Firstly, the plan gives you a benchmark against which to measure performance. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know if you're getting there? And what route changes do you need to make if you're off track? Secondly, a plan ensures that there are consistent objectives across the organisation, meaning that everyone can establish what they need to do in order to achieve the goals and that resources can be properly focused. And finally, good planning is not only about setting the desired outcome, it is also about examining the possible scenarios that could emerge. By doing this, you're better able to make informed business decisions and to respond quickly when things, as inevitably they're going to do, don't go to plan. Planning overall then improves your chances of success, and while it involves much more than financial planning, the financial plans themselves are often the basis for other decisions. So what does good merchandise financial planning look like? The starting point is to ensure that you've considered all available information. And as has been seen from COVID, that doesn't just mean your historical performance or the latest consumer trends, but also as much economic and market data as you can gather. You then need to use this to construct realistic and achievable sales, stock and margin plans that not only satisfy the needs of your customers, but will also deliver the required level of trading margin before other costs and expenses. And at times this is a difficult balancing act. By realistic and achievable here, I mean that the plan is grounded in reality and that all things being equal, it can be delivered with the available resources and constraints. As a wise man once said, over-optimism is one of the biggest causes of underperformance. At this point, it's worth reminding ourselves that where planning is concerned, you can only estimate sales. In reality, a sales forecast is only ever a guess, and that the one thing you do have control over is stock. What this means in practice is that while sales are ephemeral and dependent on the whim of your customers, stock is the reality. And the more effectively you can plan and manage it, the more options you will have to manage contingencies and deliver profitable performance. As far as the fundamentals of planning are concerned, while there are many factors to consider, these are probably the three most important. Firstly, what are my sales going to be? And where am I going to get them from? Two of the key questions here are how much is online going to grow? And how will that affect my physical stores? And what should the baseline for this year's performance be? Are we going to get back to 2019 levels? Or are we going to see a surge in sales due to pent-up demand? Difficult questions to answer in the circumstances. The second of the fundamentals is, having decided on a sales plan, what stock do I need to achieve these sales? And finally, you need to know how much trading margin these sales are going to deliver. We're going to be looking at stock and margin in more detail in future webinars, but one thing worth noting here is that while covering your operating costs is clearly critical, using them as the driver of your sales and margin is never a good idea, since it usually leads to plans that are neither realistic nor achievable. Just a reminder, sign up for our next webinar on stock management for April the 26th. One final thing to note with regards to the principles of good planning is that while the objective of the planning process is to set a plan that will deliver a desired outcome, it's also important to forecast the potential outcomes that will manifest if things don't go to plan. In other words, while you should plan assuming success, you also need to prepare for failure. Doing this means that you're able to develop the business-wide contingencies I've already mentioned, so that you can respond quickly to whatever happens. If performance is below plan, contingency planning means that you know what your options are to recover lost sales and to mitigate any stock risk. And likewise, if performance is above plan, you'll be in a better position to capitalise on the opportunities. In summary then, good planning is about using all available information to create robust sales, stock and margin plans that are both realistic and achievable based on expected trading conditions, and to ensure that you have contingencies in place so that you can react quickly and effectively when conditions do change. What tools then do you need to do this? I think there are several things that your planning system needs to do. It needs to be simple and easy to maintain. It needs to be flexible and configurable to accommodate your way of working. It needs to give a consistent view of future performance at all levels of the business. It should support top-down, bottom-up, side-out planning. You need to have a comprehensive set of metrics that enable you to properly assess performance. And finally, it should support benchmarking and allow you to create what-if scenarios. So why not use Excel? Many of you listening will already be using Excel spreadsheets for financial planning. But good planning requires a good planning toolkit, and while Excel provides a basic level of control, it does have many drawbacks. It often doesn't include all the metrics that you need to make the best possible decisions, and trying to add new metrics into multiple spreadsheets is never going to be easy or risk-free. And it usually only gives a limited future view. There's a lack of integration and consistency. Each buying team often has its own spreadsheets, sometimes even using different versions of Excel, which makes it very difficult to get a company level overview. Excel also requires a lot of maintenance and user intervention. It's often dependent on specific individuals. How many of us have wanted to make changes to the spreadsheets we're using, only to find that the only person who knows how to do so has left the company? If that's not enough, ask yourself, was Excel up to the challenges created by COVID? So why AGR? AGR developed the Merchandise Financial Planning module precisely because our customers have realised that they need to move away from Excel in order to better prepare themselves for the future. What I'm going to do now is to give you a brief overview of the AGR module to demonstrate how it provides you with all the tools you need to create your financial plans and to manage stock and intake. Firstly, it's fully integrated with pretty much any ERP. This means it's quick and easy to implement, and because it comes with a set of adaptable standard views that support typical planning processes and do look a lot like Excel, user acceptance and adoption is straightforward. These standard views are easy to amend and can be configured as part of implementation to suit each retailer's way of working. Users can also create and share their own views as required. Navigation around the planning hierarchy is very straightforward, and the user can quickly focus on the information that they need. It comes with a comprehensive set of performance metrics in selling value, at cost and units, and if there is anything specific that you require, it can be easily added. Data can be aggregated in multiple ways, and the planning periods used are configurable. It gives you an up-to-date view of future performance, so you can plan and forecast for as many years forward as required, using whatever time periods, weeks, periods, quarters, etc. that you prefer. You can also see the data in chart format for easy comparison of year-on-year performance. Stock and intake planning is flexible and dynamic, giving timely and effective open-to-buy control and management. Target stocks are set using forward cover and automatically update to reflect future sales, markdowns, etc. Both target stocks and intake can be manually adjusted within constraints to reflect specific situations such as Chinese New Year. Here, for instance, you can see that the user can only amend the intake for a week to a maximum determined by the system configuration. Open to buy updates daily to reflect the current on order situation, as you would expect. Unlike Excel, AGR gives you consistent and immediate visibility of current performance forecasts across and throughout the business, with top-down, bottom-up planning at all levels of the planning hierarchy. Current and old stock are planned separately to give you full management of your terminal stocks and markdowns. And the module also supports channel planning and for online retailers, planning of returns and write-offs. Benchmarking in AGR is done by comparing actual performance for each planning period against a fixed plan. And you can develop, save and restore multiple versions of your forecast to examine what-if trading scenarios. In summary then, AGR financial planning gives you all the tools you need to develop robust and achievable plans. And that brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you all for attending. I hope you found it informative and interesting. And if you do want further information on the module, please contact us at info@agrdynamics.com. And don't forget to visit our website to sign up for upcoming webinars. Goodbye.